Good afternoon. Welcome to the GDI Consulting's webinar on the SOF GSD, Global Services Delivery, opportunity. My name is Cal and I am your artificial intelligence host today. With me is Ab Vand, VP for Capture at GDI Consulting and a subject matter expert on these opportunities. Ab has over 30 years of experience in capture and proposal management. He is considered an expert in self-scoring as well as traditional proposal and capture efforts. Ab has managed over 1,000 successful capture and proposal efforts and is a regular contributor to Washington Technology and other online GovCon magazines. He has also held numerous training webinars for various APMP chapters and APEX, previously PTAC, offices throughout the U.S. Before starting, there are a few housekeeping notes I would like to mention. First, this webinar is being recorded and the link to the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. Second, we will hold a Q&A session at the end. You can send your questions during the webinar by the chat system to the right of your window and Ab will address them at the end. Third, you can download this presentation by clicking on the link under File on the right-hand side panel on your window. We highly recommend you download the slide deck so that you can always refer back to it. So let's see what this webinar covers. We will first have a quick glimpse on GDI Consulting's capabilities. Then, a little bit of a background on the current executing SOF GSD program. After that, Ab will discuss the general details of the SOF GSD opportunity and its scope of work. Next will come a detailed discussion of the scoring system and its 7 categories. Ab will also touch on the subject of teaming and partnering, as well as how pricing works for this IDIQ submission. Then Ab will discuss the source selection process, and finally he will open the floor for questions. So, with that, I will now hand over the control to Ab to first give a short glimpse on GDI Consulting's capabilities. Ab, you can take over now.
Hello everyone and thank you for participating in our SOF GSD webinar. As Cal mentioned, we highly recommend that you download the presentation slide deck so you can always refer back to it. Of course, if you have any questions, you can type them on the chat system and I'll respond to them at the end at the Q&A session. So let's very quickly go over the GDI's capabilities. I apologize for those of you who are our regular visitors. I have to go through this every time. So let's do this quickly. So as far as our company is concerned, we have over 15 years of solid performance, helping contractors get awards from the federal government. We have an 98% win rate on self-scoring proposals such as Oasis Plus. We actually were able to write successful proposals for 97 of our clients. So we got 97 awards under Oasis Plus for our clients. We have had an 82% win rate on DoD opportunities. That's an average of 3 years. Over 650 customers, happy customers. Over 86 of these are large clients. Some of them are on the top 10 list of defense contractors. And in 2024, we had 289 wins with a cumulative value of $19.6 billion worth of contracts. I won't go into details of the rest. Now, as far as our services are concerned, we have 4 major services we provide: proposal development, capture management, support services, and training. In proposal development, we help do eligibility and score assessment. We also help clients prepare their proposals for task orders or standalone RFPs, as well as large-scale GWACs and IDIQ BPAs, including self-scoring type proposals. For those of our clients who have their own inside shop, we provide review services as well as staff augmentation. In capture management, we provide dedicated long-term capture management, usually maybe 2 years prior to the RFP release, as well as the more short-term type, we call it sourcing and qualification, usually 3 to 6 months periods, with a full plethora of capture services. We also have special capture services we provide for specific vehicles like Oasis Plus, GSA, Mass, Seaport, and so on, in which we actually look for task orders, qualify them, and do go no-goes for them. for our clients. The platform we use is Capture Edge, which is our own platform, and a lot of our clients are already using this platform. So this is one of our offerings. It gives you a full spectrum of services as far as the platform is concerned. It's AI based. It provides it connects directly to SAM as well as eBuy for GSA Mass and OSS. So you can actually see live any task orders or opportunities that are out there. You can also research in terms of the contracts that are on, are performing, what your competitors are doing, pricing, as well as the proposal management process as well. So it's a full platform, fully capable, and is very cost effective. So I recommend for those of you who are looking for a platform to take a look at this. In terms of support services, we provide CMMC support, especially now that in 2025, 2026, it is becoming mandatory for all DoD contracts. So we support contractors to get their CMMC certifications. Accounting support and preparations for DCMA and DCAA audits. So we help clients prepare their accounting system and financial system for these audits. We provide price to win services, competitive intel, and black hat exercises as well. And finally, training. We provide both proposal and capture management training, customized to each specific need of our clients. Okay, and specific to SOF GSD opportunity, we provide free consultation, which I recommend that you take full use of. Just communicate with us and we can come on the call and answer any questions you have. Pre-qualification assessment, full proposal development. We put a dedicated team for your proposal and do a cradle to grave service for you. We take full responsibility for it. And then we provide review and auditing for those of you who have your in-house teams. We can help you in terms of reviewing and auditing your proposal. Okay, so that was a quick intro. So let's start now with the SOF GSD and start with the history of the current program that is executing by SOCOM, by SOF, and see how it's actually performing, what are the metrics. So the SOF GSD program originated in 2020 as the SOF Core Services IDIQ. Its mission was to provide USSOCOM with flexible, scalable access to professional services that enabled global readiness, so to say. With a ceiling of $950 million and dozens of awardees, the contract spanned all major components of the SOF, supporting everything from training and planning to administrative and technical services in both US and what they call forward deployed environments. Now, although the original contract was set to run through 2030, SOCOM found that the operational needs were evolving faster than the contract structure could support. That's why they're bidding it earlier. They needed a more flexible, they needed higher standards and a faster mobilization, to see a faster mobilization. So this prompted the early recompete for this. So the new SOF GSD contract will be bigger, obviously, more selective and more competitive, with a value of over 3.2 billion. Compare it to 950 million. With a value of over $3.2 billion and a self-scoring framework to reward high-performing firms, because self-scoring is essentially based on how well you have performed. I'll go into detail of that later. Now, the spending trajectory, if we look at it, of SOF GSD, current one, shows how rapidly USSOCOM expanded reliance on this contract. So from under, say, $13 million in 2021 to over, $161 million in 2024. This reflects not only increasing operational needs, but also confidence in the IDIQ framework itself. fiscal year 2025 is obviously in progress. Okay, now this graph shows the spread of the government spending based on socioeconomic standing of the contractors. So you can see that veteran-owned businesses, both standard veteran-owned and service-disabled ones, have the highest share in the socioeconomic standings. So that was the spending, and here is a list of top 10 best performers, so to say. So this list shows the firms that stood out under the original contract. These companies were among the top 10 by dollars obligated, suggesting a mix of strong capabilities, cleared teams, and performance that met SOCOM's expectations, obviously. So if you're a potential bidder, reviewing their service areas and teaming strategies may provide insight on what SOCOM is looking for. Okay, that was a very brief intro about the current executing SOF GSD program. Let's now go into this solicitation, the SOF GSD current one, and start with some general information about it. So this recompete of the SOF Core Services Program, now branded as SOF GSD, is designed as a 10-year vehicle with the project ceiling of $3.2 billion, as I mentioned. It will be awarded to 10 to 15 small businesses. Initially, they said 15. In the latest Q&A, they've said 10 to 15 small businesses under NAICS code 541611, focusing on administrative, professional, and technical services for SOF missions worldwide. The performance period includes a 5-year base and a 5-year option. Now, the procurement timeline includes a solicitation release expected in September 2025 or the first quarter of fiscal year 2026, and awards projected for early 2026. The contract start date is anticipated in June 2026. This is a best value procurement using the HTRO method. I'll go into the detail of that, meaning awards will be made to the top-ranked technical proposals that also meet price reasonableness. Offers must compete a self-score technical volume. I'll go into the detail of that again also, using the government scoring matrix, which will undergo strict validation. So to be eligible, your firm must qualify as a small business, obviously, under NAICS 541611, and you must provide 5 relevant work samples, 5 contracts, with at least one showing performance as the prime. So yes, you can use teaming, but at least one of them, if you are the prime, must come from you. If you're submitting as a mentor-protégé JV, then at least one of the projects must be from the protégé. You can't have a situation in which all 5 come from the mentor. Each sample contract must be current, verifiable, and clearly linked to the South service areas. And then you'll need an active or pending top secret facility clearance. So active or pending. And your proposal must be fully compliant, including administrative forms, OCI mitigation, and signed SF33. Note that cross-teaming is strictly prohibited under this IDIQ. Now, I mentioned a lot of things. I will go into detail of a lot of these, including the 5 contracts, teaming, and so on and so forth in the next few slides. Okay, so let's start with the scope of the SOF GSD opportunity. So the SOF GSD contract is USSOCOM's premier vehicle for acquiring mission-enabling services across its global enterprise. The scope is broad, includes everything from training and advisory services to engineering support, even operational intelligence. So contractors are expected to deliver across multiple commands, including MacDill Air Force Base, Fort Bragg, Halbert Field, and various theater special operations command worldwide. And you can see I've listed the 6 major areas: education and training, management support, program management, engineering technical services, intelligence and professional services, and administrative and other services. Okay, so the scope goes well beyond generic consulting. Contractors may be asked with designing language and cultural immersion programs, for example, supporting test and evaluation of SOF technology, developing mission rehearsal systems, conducting media impact analysis, or managing program documentation. Translation services, both written and live, are included in many task orders as well as actually classified and sensitive operational support roles. So you can see it's a very diverse scope. Okay, now let's discuss the scoring system, which is the crux of matter for winning on this RFP. So scoring is the heart of this solicitation. Contractors assign themselves a score for each of the 5 contracts they bring to the table on the basis of the 7 categories, and I'll explain the categories later. But every point must be backed by contract documentation like the SAUs, the CDRLs, DD254, and so on and so forth. If the government cannot validate your score, you lose that point. And if your score appears inflated or misleading, your proposal may be thrown out entirely. For those of you who are not familiar with self-scoring proposals, its idea is basic. There's no writing involved. So it's not like traditional proposals that you have to have a technical volume, a management volume, a past performance volume, that sort of thing. Here, you first score yourself based on a specific set of rules that the RFP sections L and M provide. You score yourself, and then you provide documentation, all official government documentation essentially, to prove that score. That's all. There's no writing per se. There might be, discussion of how you claim those score points, but essentially there's no proposal writing involved. It's all about juggling your contracts to come up with the best 5, for example, in this case, and then providing the correct documentations in the proper way. So that's essentially the type of, when we discuss proposal, self-scoring proposals, that's it. Okay. So what are the requirements for the work samples or these 5 contracts? So work samples or contracts can be standalone contracts or task orders under IDIQs or BPAs. These contracts must be for federal agencies, i.e. they must be federal contracts. You can provide an IDIQ BPA with all of its collection of task orders as one contract. The completion date of the contract must be within the last 5 years from the date of the RFP release. So that's the recency requirement. Within the last 5 years, the completion date. Doesn't matter if you received the contract 20 years ago. At least one of the contracts must be a prime contract performed by the prime. I should say that you can use subcontracts, but at least one of them must be a prime contract. It's called Tier 1. We'll see that in a minute. There is currently no minimum value set for the contracts. We'll have to see once the full RFP comes out, but they have not mentioned any minimum value for the contracts, as long as they are within the past 5 years and relevant to the scope. Okay, so a note on the contract tier structure, because we'll see that in a next few slides that you might see in the RFP as well. There are essentially 2 tiers, as they call it. Tier 1 is the prime contracts. The tiering is for the contracts. So you have Tier 1 contracts and Tier 2 contracts. So Tier 1 contracts are those that are the prime contractors, prime contracts. So if a prime contractor has a subcontract, that is not considered tier 1. So the prime contractor's prime contracts are tier 1, or if you're submitting as a JV members prime contracts again. That is considered tier 1. Tier 2 are the prime's subcontracts. If the prime contractor has subcontracts, they can be used, but they're considered tier 2. If you're an MPJV, mentor-protégé JV, mentors contracts are considered, even if they're prime contracts, the mentors contracts are considered tier 2. If you're a normal JV, then the members subcontracts are considered tier 2. The members prime contracts are considered tier 1. The members subcontracts are considered tier 2. Now, we'll go into the categories later. There are 7 categories, but you need to understand that for category 1 and 6, you can only use tier 1 contracts. For the other categories, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can use either tier 1 or tier 2, doesn't matter. And category 7 has nothing to do with tiers, so that's something else. But so for category 1 and 6, we can only use prime contracts, that is tier 1 contracts. This is important to understand. Okay, so there are, as I mentioned, 7 main score factors or categories as they call them. And you can see how they compare to each other as far as the score points are concerned for a total of 16,850. So that's the total. If you sum up this, you can see that that's the total for all of these 7 categories. Now, essentially, they're all based on the 5 contracts that you choose to bring to the table. Just remember one point. It's not that you can choose 5 contracts for category 2 and 5 other contracts for category 5, for example. That's not the case. At the end of the day, you need to pick 5 contracts that will give you the highest score for all these categories. That's why I said, you need to do a lot of analytical thinking, juggling, math to actually come up with the best contracts that will give you the highest score. Okay. Let's go into the details of these categories now and see how they work. So the 7 category sub areas or categories as they call it, each one represents a real indicator of your capability as far as the government is concerned. Your job is to demonstrate 5 past performances or 5 contracts that match these metrics. Starting from the first one. How many people you deployed, CONUS, OCONUS locations, that's category 2. Category 3, how fast you filled roles. Category 4, how wide your footprint was in terms of the LCATs. How many mission areas your work covered, that's category 5. In addition to your retention rate, which is category 6. And then category 7 is usually 0 because it deducts from your numbers. Unless, if you have marginal or unsatisfactory ratings in your CPARs, 500 points for marginal and 2,000 points for unsatisfactory ratings are deducted from your score. That's why, again, it's important to pick 5 contracts that you do not lose any points in there. You have a very good contract that has many for example personnel used in it. It was in different geographical areas, so it has good points in all categories, but for some reason you had an unsatisfactory rating. Suddenly you lose 2,000 points on that. So you have to really carefully pick all 5 contracts on this basis. Okay, so let's go into the details of each of these categories one by one now. Category 1 is the total positions on 1 contract. So in category 1, you only have to present 1 of the 5 contracts, the contract which has the highest number of workforce. So This category rewards the size and complexity of your workforce. The more personnel you deployed under a single on that one contract, the higher the points you can claim. So it measures a scale of workforce deployed under a single contract or task order. Remember, task orders are allowed. So maximum points, 1,000 points, is 20 points per employee, maximum 50 employees, and you multiply it. So if you had your largest contract had 30 employees, 30 times 20, you get 600 points for this. Maximum is 1,000. It's based on the number of personnel supporting the work sample or that contract. Applies to only tier 1 work samples. Remember, tier 1 were prime contract, or the JV's members prime contracts. So only that is acceptable. So you must pick the contract with the largest workforce in it and use that for category 1. Now, as far as remember self-scoring, we said you first score yourself, then you provide documentation. So supporting documentation must prove the actual number of positions filled. Don't just cite a staffing plan. Show evidence that those roles were active during the performance. A table with job titles, contract dates, and things like that, and counts, for example, is a strong approach. So you really have to prove the exact number that you're claiming a score for. Now, category 2 is CONUS OCONUS site diversity. So it measures the breadth of performance across different geographical locations. The scoring is based on 3 levels. So if you have contracts that are CONUS, that is within US, multiple sites, you get points. I'll explain how. But remember that multiple sites in one state count as one, okay, one citation. Second type of scoring is OCONUS for countries that are not Germany or Korea. So if you performed in countries other than Germany or Korea, you get points. But if you had, for example, contracts in multiple locations in one country, maximum per country is 2. And then third type is for contracts that were performed in Germany and Korea, you get more points. Now let's see how this works. So the maximum is 1,250. If your sites, the location of your sites were in CONUS, remember we have 5 contracts, maximum 5 sites per contract are allowed, and then you get 10 points per site. So one contract has a max, is allowed 5 different sites. Each of them you get 10 points. That's 50 times 5 for 5 contracts. That's 250 points max. For OCONUS type, which are not Germany and Korea, you get 20 points. So again, 5 sites per contract. So 5 sites times 20, you get 100 points. Since you have 5 contracts, maximum is 500 points that you can get. Now, for OCONUS, you get 250 points, and you can cite maximum of 2. So if you have 2 different sites that were either in Germany or in Korea, you get 250 points for each, and you get a maximum of 500. They sum up to 1,250. Obviously, it's very hard to get all of them together, but again, so you have to have a contract that is performed both within US, outside Germany and Korea, as well as in Germany and Korea. So things like that to be able to get the maximum 1,250. So that's how you actually calculate this score factor, category 2. And remember, this does not have to be tier 1, so you can use tier 2, meaning subcontracts, your subcontractors contracts, and things like that. Okay, now as far as supporting documentation is concerned, you have to support your claim with location-specific documentation. Even a contract mod showing where personnel were stationed can help. You must separate Germany and Korea from other OCONUS sites for accurate scoring. So remember that. Now, category 3, speed of staff mobilization. This category measures readiness. So it evaluates your ability to rapidly mobilize staff post-award. Only applies, it applies to all tiers work samples. I shouldn't say only. So it applies to all tiers. So it can be tier 1 or tier 2, whether it's a prime contract or subcontract. Maximum points is 2,000 points. Now the exact requirement is the percentage of the awarded billet hired or transitioned onto the contract within the first 30 days of the contract. When I say percentage, maybe you can say, okay, so this contract had 100 employees, but within the first 30 days, you hired 60 employees, for example. So that's 60 out of 100. That's 60%. Okay, this is how you actually calculate the percentage. Minimum is 25. You receive 20 points per percentage. So if you have 100%, say you were supposed to hire 100 personnel and you hired all of them within the first 30 days, so you're at 100%. You multiply it by 20, so the maximum is 2,000. In our case, example case, if we hired 60 employees, we were at 60%. So we get only 60 times 20 is 1,200 points. This is how you calculate the point. Now you need to document the actual date each billet was filled, each employee was hired, and compare it against the contract award date. Government validated transition plans or monthly reports showing full staffing, all of these are essentially effective. Okay, now category 4 is labor category breadth. This category reflects the technical diversity of your workforce. So a wider range of labor categories indicates you can support complex and perhaps multidisciplinary task orders. So it's based on how many distinct labor categories, LCATs, appear in your work samples in your contracts. Shows your ability to support diverse service areas. Maximum points down for 9,000. Let's see how they calculate it. So you receive 50 points per acceptable LCAT for a maximum of 180 LCATs. So 180 times 50 is 9,000. Now what is an acceptable LCAT? That's the list, 12 of them. Intelligence analyst, INT specific, linguist, data specialist, operational planner, analyst, mission assurance, financial management, strategic planner, role player, instructor, regional cultural advisor, and SOF specialty trainer. If you use any of these, up to 180 of them you can cite, obviously within the 5 contracts that you're submitting. And for each of them you get 50 points for a total of 9,000 points. That's how you calculate this. So the LCAS must be defined in your contract documentation and clearly match the scoring matrix categories. So those 12 different categories. Avoid making assumptions. Use official names as listed in your task orders or PWS. So you have to be very specific so you don't lose any points as far as your proof documents are concerned. Now category 5 is breadth of SOW capabilities. So this category reflects your breadth of capability. The more core service areas from the SOW you can validate in your work samples, the more points you earn. So it's just how many SOW defined service areas your contract supported. Maximum points 600, 10 points or 30 points, depends, I'll show you in a minute, per supported service areas on the type of below areas. Now there are 3 areas that you're supposed to provide proof that you covered: management support, program management, and professional services. Now in each of these, if it's SOF related, you get 30 points. If it's non-SOF related, you get 10 points. Okay, that's how you that's how you calculate per management support, program management, and professional services areas. SOF related 30 points, non-SOF related 10 points, for a total of 600 points. Now, in terms of documentation, be precise, show exactly where in your contract you delivered each service area, whether that's through training, engineering support, program planning, or administrative services, but you have to link them to one of those three. A side-by-side mapping table would be ideal to provide a proof. And of course, you have to cite from your SAO. So category 6 is for your retention rate. This category measures your ability to hold on to your staff, essentially. If you show that your team stayed on with you during months 3 to 12 of the base year, so those are the months that you have to provide proof for, not the first 3 months, months 3 to 12. You can claim the full 3,000 points, but the proof must be bulletproof. So it evaluates your ability for the retention of the staff, applies to one tier 1 contract. Remember, this has to be a tier 1 contract. The retention rate is for months 3 to 12. So you don't need to worry about months 1, 2, and 3, but 1 and 2. So you have to show that, for example, if you had 100 employees in month 3, at the end of month 12, if you had all employees in place, same employees, remember, there is a calculation. I'm not going to go into details of that, but you have to have the same employees at the end of that month 12. Then your retention rate is 100%. Now, out of the 100, if you lost 20 of them, so by the end of 12th month, you had only 8 of the original employees, that's 80%. So that's how you calculate the retention rate. Maximum is 3,000, and you receive 30 points per percentage. So if it's 80, for example, percent, so you multiply 80 by 30 is 2,400 points. 100% times 30 would give you 3,000 full score. Okay, so in terms of proof, you need the document to actual you actually need to document the actual date each FTE was filled and compare it against the contract award date. Government validated transition plans, for example, or monthly reports showing full staffing, all of these are especially effective. Okay, so category 7, I should say category 7, says scoring category 6, 7, is CPARS ratings. Now, this category deducts from your total score. So the best score here is 0. The CPARS rating for the 5 contracts you use will be the basis for this category. So they're going to look at the CPARS ratings and deduct points from you if you have a poor performance. So a CPAR report for each performance period of the contracts must be provided. So, for example, if you had a contract for 3 years, the POP is for 3 years at the time that the SOF GSD solicitation is released, you must submit all 3 CPARs, not the latest CPAR, all 3 CPARs. And then they're going to go through all of them looking for marginal and unsatisfactory CPARs. Now, if the government finds any marginal CPAR rating for the 5 contracts you're providing, you lose 500 points each. So if you have 5 marginal throughout the years and things like that, you lose 2,500 points. For unsatisfactory, you lose 2,000 points. So it's really important to pick again the contracts that you're choosing those 5 contracts, looking at the CPARs, making sure there are no marginal or unsatisfactory in any of the years. Again, I want to emphasize, not the latest CPARs, all the CPARs for that particular contract must be provided to the government. Okay, so these were the 7 categories and how their scoring system worked. Let's now discuss teaming and partnering, as it is an important issue for SOF GSD. So SOF GSD allows teaming and joint ventures, including mentor-protégé relationships. You can submit contracts from your JV partners or subcontractors, as long as their roles are disclosed. You have to write about that. However, you must ensure that these relationships are fully documented and compliant with SPA and RFP requirements. But essentially, SOF GSD allows you to bring in as many team members as you want, whether they're you create a JV relationship with them, joint venture, or you create a prime sub relationship. But remember that for prime sub relationships, for categories 1 and 6, if you remember, the contracts must come from you, the prime. They cannot come from the subcontractors. But for all other categories, the contracts can come from the subcontractors. If you're forming a JV, then the JV member contracts are considered tier 1. So you have no problem there with regards to use of those contracts. Now, cross-teaming is strictly banned in this procurement, so you cannot be in multiple teams. A subcontractor on one team cannot appear on another team's proposal or over and under cases, whereas your prime in one submission and sub to another prime in another submission. These are not allowed. This includes also companies within a joint venture, so you cannot be in multiple joint ventures. The government will reject proposals that violate this rule, so ensure exclusivity in your teaming arrangements when you're considering this. When you're negotiating with other team members, exclusivity is important. Finally, in case of mentor-protégé JVs, you cannot have all the contracts coming from the mentor. I mentioned this earlier. At least one of them must belong to the protégé, and this has to be tier 1. So if say you have 5 contracts, 4 of them are from the mentor, 1 of them must come from the protégé, and it must be tier 1, meaning that it must be a prime contract by the protégé, not a subcontract by the protégé. Remember this is an important factor. So prime contract. Okay. Now let's discuss pricing. Usually in these self-scoring proposals, there's always the question, what about pricing? So let's consider it. So the pricing volume is a critical part of your submission. It's volume 3. You'll need to provide rate structures and a detailed total compensation plan for labor categories and completed pricing templates as directed. Now, this IDIQ allows a mix of FFP, CPFF, and TNM and labor hour contract types depending on the task orders. So your pricing must be flexible and justifiable. Now, while price is not scored numerically, so essentially it doesn't play anything in terms of the score that you get, it's critically reviewed once your technical score places you in the top 15. So I'll discuss the source selection process, but your pricing is not considered at the beginning. First, they'll go and see who have the highest scores in the previous technical sections that we discussed, those 5 contracts, and they pick the top 15, say once they decide to go for 15 contractors, then they start checking your pricing. They're not going to compare your pricing to others and then, remove you in terms of comparison, but they want to see that you're providing a fair and reasonable price to the government, your prices are realistic, and you're compliant with wage laws and labor standards. So this is important. The risks that you encounter here are unrealistic or underpriced labor rates. Remember, again, I want to emphasize this. They're not going to compare your prices with others and then remove you from the list because your price is lower. So do not underprice your labor rates. Obviously, overpriced labor rates is something that falls outside a fair and reasonable price. So that's a no-no. And then missing TCP details. Missing details, you get disqualification. So make sure that you provide proper information. TCP, I mean total compensation plan. And then excessive G&A or fee loads and that sort of thing. So make sure that you are within range. We can help you on this if you have any doubts on that. Okay, so that was pricing. Now let's discuss the source selection system, how the government is going to actually go through the proposals. So this is where the HTRO evaluation process falls in. The HTRO stands for highest technically rated offer with fair and reasonable price. So essentially, first your proposal must pass the acceptability review. So they check to see that it's acceptable. Usually they check volume 1. For example, you've signed the SF-33, or you've provided the search and reps and that sort of thing. And then in step 2, they rank based on your own validated self-score. So say there are 500 submissions under SOF GSD. The government is not going to read all those 500 proposals. What they will do is they rank, since everybody has scored themselves, they rank the proposals based on the self-scores that the contractors have done, pick the top 15, because they're going to award to 15. So they're only going to read off and spend time on those 15 and not the rest. That's why ranking yourself properly and picking the best contracts and all of that is so important. They're not going to look at anything else except the self-score that you have done yourself. Pick the top 15, and then they start verifying. They start verifying for eligibility, score substantiation, and documentation accuracy. So they only do this for those 15. Now, if during the verification that the government is doing, they find out that one of the contractors is not, does not provide proper substantiation, or the documents are missing, and they lose points, they put aside that contractor and pick the 16th one. So this is how they're going to actually review your proposal. So you want to make sure that first you're foolproof in volume 1 in terms of compliance, so you pass step 1. In step 2, in terms of ranking, you want to make sure that you are in the top 15. That means you've done your homework and picked the best 5 contracts that will give you the highest score. And then for government verification, you want to make sure that you've done it properly in terms of proper documentation justifications, the formats and content. They provide usually names. You have to highlight different areas of the South, properly highlighted, things like that. So you want to make sure that all of this is done properly, so when the government tries to verify it, they don't miss anything and they find the proof documentation properly. So that's the process that the government is going to go through. Now, only the top 15 technically ranked offers will be considered for award. But even then, proposals can be eliminated if pricing is unrealistic, or if required elements like your OCI mitigation plan are missing or deficient. So in this procurement, precision and compliance are just as important as capability. So these are the important factors that the government will consider when they're going through your proposal. Okay, so we're done as far as how the SOF GSD proposal and the scoring system works and how the government is going to go through it. Now, as far as the services, I just want to reiterate the services we provide towards SOF GSD and those contractors who are going for it. We provide free consultation, and as I mentioned, please make use of this and consult us. We can answer any questions you might have and clear any ambiguities. We provide pre-qualification assessment, and then once you decide to go after this opportunity, we provide full proposal development with a dedicated proposal team. We take full responsibility, cradle to grave, go through all the contracts that you might have, doesn't matter how many, and remember that since there's no value restriction, if you have a number of contacts, we will go through them to try to find the best 5. That's what we call score assessment optimization, and then prepare the proposal on that basis and help you upload through the DoD SAFE system. If you have your own in-house teams, we can provide reviewing and auditing of your proposal, 2 rounds of compliance checks, and then score optimization checks, and helping through the DoD SAFE system submission. So these are the services we provide towards SOF GSD. And here's our contact information, email and phone number for myself for technical inquiries and for consulting, setting up times for consultation time, or if you need our services, proposal development, capture, or any other services, please contact Maroon Freedy, my colleague. His email and phone number are there. Email is much better so that we don't miss your call. Okay, so now we've reached the Q&A, and let's look through the questions that you have posed and try to answer them. So first question, I'll read everything quickly so we can answer more questions. Is this solicitation set aside for small business only? Yes, small businesses are eligible as primes only. So, however, subcontractors can be large businesses, so you can bring in large businesses as your subcontractors. But the prime must be small under NAICS code 541611. Next question, are classified proposals allowed? Proposals must be unclassified, but work samples, that means contracts, can be classified up to secret, no foreign, if submitted separately via CIPRNet. Next question, is top secret facility clearance required at time of proposal? Yes, or your proposal will be excluded from competition. But remember that if you don't have the active top secret facility clearance, you can show that you are pursuing it. So if it's pending, that's acceptable too. Next question, is there a requirement that my accounting system must have been reviewed by DCAA? Not necessarily. If it has been reviewed, provide the documentation, the letter. If not, you must submit the form SF1408 pre-award survey. I think you're familiar with that. That's acceptable too, with the documentation to show adequacy of your accounting system. Next question, can subcontractor work samples be used for scoring? Yes, as I mentioned, they are considered tier 2 contracts. You can use them for categories, for all categories except category 1 and 6. Remember, category 1 and 6 were for tier 1 contracts only. Next question, are they requiring use? I think it was us to provide the CPARs for only the 5 contracts or all our CPARs during the past 5 years. Only the 5 contracts. So you must provide the CPARs for only the 5 contracts that you're submitting. But remember that if each contract has multiple years of performance, you must provide the CPARs for each of those years for that contract. What happens if my substantiation document do not match my self-score? The government actually will reduce your score. So remember to make sure that you provide the proper documentation in the proper way they want. They won't disqualify you, you just don't receive the points that that document was trying to justify. Next question. What documentation is needed to validate work samples? Well, depends on the type of a category, but essentially contract awards like the award, PWS, CDRLs, also invoices, time cards, rosters, and things like that. All of them must clearly support the claimed points. Next question. Are there minimum time requirements for a valid contract? Yes, as I mentioned, it must have been performed the past 5 years. If it's ongoing, 6 months of performance. Next question. Are rotational deployment sites considered valid OCONUS sites? Yes, if clearly documented and contract personnel provided support there, you can use those. Next question. Are you penalized for not having CPARs? No, no penalty. You just receive 0, which is good because, as I mentioned, category 7 or CPARs, you get deduction points. So if you get 0, that's the best point you can get. They are going to deduct points for those CPARs that have marginal or unsatisfactory points. Next question. What if our federal contract does not have a CPAR due to security reason? Can we use a PPQ? No, you cannot use a PPQ. Only fully completed CPARs are allowed. But remember that if there's no CPARs, you don't get any points, which is 0. You shouldn't be afraid of getting a 0 here. That's the best point you can get. So if there's no CPAR for your contract, you're good to go. That's it. The question might come that I don't know if it's the continuation of reading the questions, but say you are a subcontractor, you don't have a CPAR. What do? Nothing. You just don't get negative points because a subcontractor does not have a CPAR. The government only requires CPARs for category 7. So if you don't have a CPAR, you get 0, which is good. Next question. What counts as a valid site for geographical scoring? A site is a distinct geographical location where billable contract staff, your people, perform work. If they're the same city, it's considered one site. And remember, same state within the US is considered one site. Next question. Can I use redacted data to prove hiring timelines? Yes, you can. You can anonymize records like employee 001 with HR or payroll system evidence. What documents are required in the price volume? Okay, so in the price volume, you need a staffing proposal pricing template, which comes with the RFP, and the cost price introductory documents as they're listed in sections L4 if you refer to that. Next question. Do all teammates need TS clearance at proposal stage? No. So only the prime needs top secret facility clearance at proposal time. Subcontractors safeguarding can be managed post-award. You don't need to provide that at the time. Is there a security requirement? What is the SPRS score requirement I read about? So a minimum SPRS score of 110 is required at proposal time for the prime. If you're a JV and it's unpopulated, then both members of the JV must provide that SPRS score of 110. Now, this is to prove compliance with the NIST 800-171 cybersecurity standard. There's a process that you have to go through, self-score, but then you upload that, and you have to have above 110. If you have any questions, you can contact me later. I'll explain this to you. How did you say the submission is done? If I mentioned the email, that's not the case. You cannot email. You must use the DoD SAFE system, SAFE system. If you send by email, it will be disqualified. So submission is through the DoD SAFE portal. Next question. Can subcontractors be added post-award? Of course. Even failed offers can be added post-award under FAR 52244-2. So yes, you can add as many subcontracts as you like post-award. Next question. Will future task orders use LPTA evaluation?
Well, it depends. That's one of the ways. It depends on the task order. So we might see some task orders that do use that. What counts as proof of employment for key personnel? So a signed employment agreement or letter of intent, something like that, is required to show commitment. Let's see. So I'm checking time. We are over the time allowed. So let me stop here. A few more questions remain, but we have run out of time. Now, I apologize for that. I will respond to the rest of the questions by email, of course. Thank you, everyone, for participating in our webinar, and I look forward to seeing you in our future webinars as well. Have a great day.